Okay, welcome back everyone. So this video is really just teaching the inch on an imperial tape measure. So I'm holding a imperial tape in my hand up in front of the camera, and I want to draw your attention to the line sizes that are on this tape. Okay, so take a look at the whole numbers, so like the 7, 8, 9, 10 inches all the way up the tape. The whole numbers get a line all the way across the tape. Now that's not the case with every tape, but a lot of the straight imperial tape measure tapes will typically have that. So the longest line on the tape is the whole number lines, okay? And it took me quite a while to get fairly proficient at measuring. And when we look at the inch is broken up into 16 equal parts, okay? And that's a lot to remember. If you're super gifted, you can probably do it. But I was never that gifted with math, and so I had to kind of find an easy work around the system. And I found it helpful to memorize the line sizes on the tape. So I'm hoping that the same thing that worked for me is going to work for you and help you with your measuring skills. So I'm just going to teach that to you right now. So, like I said, the whole numbers on the tape get the longest lines. The next longest lines on the tape are going to be our ½ marker lines, okay? And they repeat all the way down the tape. So it's going to be, let's say that'd be 8.5, 9.5, 10.5, 11.5, etc. Okay. When we go and we half, we end up with a quarter. And so we end up with the next longest line on the tape being our ½ marker lines, these guys right here. Okay. So anything that lands on one of those ½ marker lines, the answer that we're going to give is going to be something quarters. It's going to be 1/4, or it's going to be 3/4. 1/4 or 3/4. 1/4 or 3/4, all the way down the tape. Now we can half a quarter and we get an 1/8. And then we end up with the same thing. We have this line size right here, and no matter where it falls on the tape, my answer is going to be something 1/8. Okay? And then likewise, when we split that in half again, we end up with 1/16. And so that's how we end up with all these tiny little lines all the way down the tape, breaking our inch into the 16 equal parts that it typically is. Okay, so I'm going to go and just take my ruler and my pencil, and I am going to draw a great big expanded view of an inch for you on this piece of paper. Okay, so what I just drew here, let's pretend that this represents 1 inch. Okay, so this is 0. This is our 1 inch point. Okay. So all we're really looking at here is like pick any section of the tape measure, right? And we're looking at 1 inch of the tape. Okay. So now when we go and we half the half, or sorry, when we go and take 1 inch and we divide it in half, we're going to find that that ½ marker line is not quite as long as the whole number lines. And that's identified as the ½ marker. So whenever you see that line size on the tape, you know your answer is going to be expressed as something half. 9.5, 10.5, 11.5, whatever the case may be. When we take a half and we half it again, we end up with something quarters. Okay, and again, we're looking at 1 inch here. So when we half this side of it, we've got 1/4. And so now that line size represents something quarter. So if whatever I'm measuring ends up over here, I'm going to go back to the first whole number line head of this line size indicator, and I'm going to just count over. I'll mark it with my thumb here. I'll go 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be expressed as 3 quarters. Okay. Now when we go and divide a quarter in half again, you guessed it, we end up with eighths. And the eighth lines are a little bit shorter than the quarter lines. And the nice thing about that is as soon as we measure something and it lands on that size line, we know that our answer is going to be expressed as something eighth. All we really have to do is just go back to our first whole number line and count in sequence. So let's say whatever we're measuring, it ends up right here. Okay, I'm going to find the first line size of that sequence from the whole number, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This is expressed as 3/8 of an inch. Let's say whatever we're measuring ends up right here. I'm going to find the first line size of that sequence and count over from our whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would express as 5/8 of an inch. And let's say whatever we're measuring ends up over here. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eighths of an inch. And if it ended up right here, well, that's the first one in the sequence. That would be 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So when we go and we divide an eighth in half again, what do we end up with? We end up with 16ths. And 16ths are all those busy little lines that are down in here. But again, this is really simple because whatever we're measuring, if it ends up on one of those little lines, you know that the answer you're going to give is going to be something 16ths, because these all identify as a 16th inch marker line. Okay, so this would be 1/16. This guy over here, I'm going to go to the first line size in that sequence. I'm going to measure from our whole number. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This guy is 3/16 of an inch. If it ends up right here, I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5/16 of an inch. And again, if it ends up right here, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 16ths of an inch. And we can just continue that all the way down the tape. So let's jump away from here a little bit and let's go to the other side of the tape. So let's say it ended up right here. We're going to find the line size in the sequence, first one away from the whole number, and measure equal spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 16ths. Let's say it landed right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 16ths of an inch. And we can continue to do this. So let's say we've got 2 left. We've got one right here. Let's do him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He would be 9/16 of an inch. And over here, if we were to go and count that through, we would find that he is 13/16 of an inch. And the more you do this, the more efficient you're going to be. Eventually, you're not going to have to count anymore. You're going to just recognize the line size, and you're going to know what that measurement is. So for example, my eye is typically, when I look at the inch, my eye is drawn to the half and the quarter markers, and I just kind of know what falls next to them, to the left and to the right. So for example, this 13/16, I just know that the first little line to the right-hand side of 3/4 is 13/16. And I just know that the first little line to the left of the 3/4 is 11/16. And likewise, all the way down the tape, that I just know that the first little line to the right of 1/4 inch is 5/16. And I know that the first little line to the left of 1/4 inch is 3/16. So eventually you are going to get to the point where you can glance at the tape and spit out the measurement without having to count your line sizes anymore. But the nice thing about this is it starts you off measuring, and you only have 5 things to remember, really. Our first line size is our whole number line. That's thing number 1 to remember. Our 1/2 inch marker line is the next longest line on the tape. That's the second line to remember. The third longest line to remember is our 1/4 inch markers, followed by our 1/8 inch markers, followed by our 1/16 inch markers. So there's 5 things to remember versus trying to remember 16 different fractions. And if you can remember all those 16 different fractions and remember it at a glance and spit it out just like that, then good for you. I was never able to do that. It took me a long time before I could just look at a tape and quickly spit out the measurement. And this is the method that I used. I learned my 5 line sizes, and I anchored myself to those 5 line sizes, and eventually I became very quick with knowing what fell to the left and what fell to the right of those line sizes. And it's helped me become more accurate with my measuring. It's helped me be able to measure much more quickly. So I'm hoping that this same method will work for you as well. So this is the inch in imperial measurement. And if it is new to you and if you need to brush up, feel free to rewind this video and watch it as many times as you need to. But I'm hoping that this system will work for you as well. And so from here you can go and jump on to the link that I provided for you for the imperial measuring tool and practice your skills using the imperial measuring tool and see if you can make it to level 10. Level 10 is really difficult and requires a lot of speed. So you don't have any time at all to hesitate. You have to like answer. And so it's a really great test to see where you're at with your measuring skills. So happy measuring, and bye for now.